Hey everyone, and welcome back to the fourth episode now of the Games Per Second podcast. I, as always, am still Gio, and with me, as always, is...
Still Winston. Hello.
Hey.
Again.
Yay. This is happening more than I thought it would, and that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
I like this. As with last week, more happened this week than I anticipated. Nintendo announced a game completely out of the blue, which I want to get to right out the gate because I've got a couple things to say about that. It got a lot of Nintendo. It's usually Nintendo. We like Nintendo. We like our Switch. It sold very well. But yeah, tons to talk about. Let's get into it. Nintendo announced Game Builder Garage, which is kind of in the same vein as Dreams for PlayStation, except Dreams wasn't made by Sony. It was just a Sony exclusive, right? This is in-house for Nintendo, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. What I found interesting, though, I think you can make 3D stuff in Game Builder Garage. They showed off a lot more 2D stuff, though.
Yes.
Right?
It
seemed that way.
You can definitely make 3D stuff. There's at one point there was like a person going in a circle or something.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm pretty sure you can make 3D stuff. They didn't showcase a lot of it. My guess is it's a lot more limiting than Dreams are. That's weird to say. It's a plural, but it's like not a plural.
Yeah, it's a singular game, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, so I'm guessing it's more limiting than that, but it's still very cool, regardless.
Yeah, it kind of caught me by surprise, but then I learned that Toy-Con Garage was on Labo.
Yes.
So I can see that a connection. So someone mentioned, well, why would Nintendo just randomly put this out, just kind of out of the blue yesterday? And someone mentioned the release date is in June. They didn't want why wouldn't they just have a direct like now and include this game? It's like, well, they're saving their heat for E3 in June. But okay, so then why wouldn't they save this game for then? Because you don't just want to kind of shadow drop a game like this. So that's why it was kind of just one of those in between. Here's a random announcement because again, it's too early to talk about E3 stuff, but E3 would be far too late to talk about this. So just kind of got stuck in the middle. So yeah, they just put out the announcement yesterday.
No, I think it's smart to put this out. It's not a game that you want, or it's not even. I don't even know if I would call it a game. It's like a game dev tool, honestly. It's not something that you need to shadow drop, or that will benefit from shadow dropping, really. I think this little, like, hey, this is a thing, we're putting it out, and they can announce it, or, like, say something else during E3, that's fine. Mm-hmm. No one's losing their mind over whatever this is.
I'm interested in it, though, because, like, well, first of all, a lot of kids have the Nintendo Switch.
Yes.
The UI seems to be pretty kid-friendly. So a lot of kids that might have ideas be like, oh, man, this would be so cool. And maybe, because, again, the PlayStation, it did have Dreams, but I feel like PlayStation's demographic might be a bit different. The tools may have been different. Whereas this, I feel like there's going to be a lot of kids who own Switches, who have ideas and are finally going to get that outlet to start creating. I think this is a great idea for them. Or like they like a certain game and want to kind of put their own spin on it. Oh man, what if this game had that? And obviously, it's not going to be the same thing, but it's about giving them a creative outlet. I think is very, very cool. I think even adults who don't know much about game development and just kind of want to mess around, you know, for the right price, I don't see why not.
I think
I don't see why not at all.
I completely agree. I also think the last time I heard it was like $30 American. I don't know what that.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. I don't.
That's
quote me on
$40
that,
Canadian.
But I did look at it.
I thought it was gonna be full price. If it is 30 American, 40 Canadian, I can see I'm even more interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a bad price.
I agree. It's not a bad price at all. And I was gonna mention, like as you said, like it's bringing kids into the space of like developing for themselves, and they have those like, creative ideas and whatever. And it's nice to give them an outlet for that. I was that kid when I was younger. I was like looking for ways to develop games, and at the time, it sucked. There was nothing that you could do. I mean, there was like early versions of Game Maker when I was younger, which was like horrible. I was able to like make a really crappy looking house looking thing, and it took forever, and I was like, wow, is this what game dev is? This is not what I want to do. But yeah, so having like a system like this, which it's a node-based programming language essentially.
I was gonna mention that.
It's great, and it's a really good way to get people into even like pseudo programming, because even Unreal has a node-based system, and Unity is working to make a node-based system for programming. Unreal's is Blueprints. I don't know what Unity's going to call theirs, but I'm sure that Unreal's is a lot more in depth than the Game Builder Garage. But
I would hope
that's not even like, oh, I'm sure. Like I've done it. I've used Blueprints. It is more in depth than whatever Game Builder Garage is going to give you, but that's not like what they're trying to do. They're not trying to make you be able to make AAA games with Game Builder Garage. They're just trying to let you be creative and put something out there.
Yeah, I was gonna say it feels like games have tried giving users some tools to various degrees. Again, we mentioned Dreams, but like it goes far longer than that. Even with Nintendo, Super Mario Maker to an extent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, again, here's a bunch of kids that love playing, and adults who even grew up playing 2D Mario games, like ourselves, now have the tools to make some Mario levels on Switch. Like, it's awesome.
It's amazing.
I mean, I know it was on Wii U, but we don't talk about the Wii U. Well, actually,
we are going to talk about the Wii U, but yeah, we'll get to that.
But not right now. Yeah, so the point being that like, again, it gives kids today a creative outlet, I guess a lot of us wanted, while simultaneously not like making it like too childish to where it's still kind of for all ages to an extent.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be like, I guess, that's the thing. Like, listen, there's a difference between kid-friendly and then targeted towards kids.
Yes.
I think this is certainly kid-friendly. I think a lot of kids are going to pick it up, but it doesn't alienate their adult audience either. I think a lot of adults are going to pick this up as well. I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah, so it's a way for people to get into programming without ever having to really know how to program. And I'm going to put this out there for whoever listens, which, like, I don't know, right now we're getting, like, maybe 10 viewers on the podcast. So if you're a kid or an adult listening to this, and someone's saying, oh, you're getting nothing from using, like, Game Builder Garage, like, you're not learning anything, it's not like programming at all, they're just shaming you for no reason. So, yeah, it's not, like, programming technically, but the logic is there. So if you ever do want to go into programming, at least you'll already have the base logic of like what programming is. It's helpful, and even if you don't want to get into programming, that doesn't mean you can't enjoy building something using this node-based system.
Exactly. That's the thing. Just because it isn't exactly programming, who says it has to be?
Exactly.
It's a game, first and foremost. But yeah, it's kind of a halfway point. It's kind of a gateway drug.
Yes.
you know what I mean? I think would be the best way to put it. Where it's like, it's not the same thing, but it's an entry level kind of. Like you mentioned, it's using a node-based system. That some of that knowledge will be transferable to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I think that's really, really cool. I think not only a game like this is cool, but I think specifically using a node-based system, I think is a great idea, as it does help bridge that gap somewhat.
Yep.
A bit better than other games with similar tools have. So I think that was a great idea to include that and to work that in. And yeah, generally, I think it's great. I think it's great, especially for the right price. I think it's great.
I agree. I think it's an amazing thing to add in. There's no real downfall to adding it in. You're going to get a bunch of random created stuff. It's going to create a lot of press for you as Nintendo as well. And yeah, I mean, node-based stuff is the future almost. Like, I guarantee you, if you've played a game that was made in the Unreal Engine, there is stuff that is made with blueprints in that game. Within the past, 5 to 8 years, there is stuff made with blueprints in that game, and blueprints is Unreal's node-based system. So, just, don't bash it just because it's simplified and kiddish looking. It's great. It's an easy way to get into something like that. I will say, though, apparently, the sharing of the games that you make is going to be very weird.
Is it going to be similar to Super Mario Maker 2, where it's codes?
I think it is code. You have to trade codes, yeah.
It's something, but yeah, Nintendo's online sharing system, again, bringing up Super Mario Maker 2, has never really been fantastic to begin with. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's not the greatest, but I can't say I wasn't expecting that, though.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Are you going to be picking this game up?
As a programmer? Probably not.
Fair.
Fair. I think I like where it's going, and I'll look into it, and if I feel like it has more potential in it than me spending time programming in Unity or Unreal or whatever, then I'll do it. I'll put something out there. But I enjoy the act of programming, and using a node-based system on a console. It doesn't give me that same feeling. It's more limiting, and I like to not have the limits put on me, right?
Of course. No, I totally understand that. My only, I guess, idea going into that question was someone a Rubber Ross, who's done work with the Game Grumps, where we're where he, again, it's not about, I guess, being a programmer, which you being a programmer, I can see why that can be a bit of a turnoff. But just getting something creative to an audience like that, because that would really open up to a certain audience. But yeah, like you said, it doesn't have certain tools. It you program in Unity and Unreal, so it is a very, very different ball game, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah,
maybe because I know how to program and stuff. Maybe
with the right audience,
if it becomes super popular and people want tutorializations of stuff, if they need them, because I already know programming logic, I wouldn't mind spending $30 to $40 and putting stuff out for people to watch. But
interesting.
I don't see myself really delving into it for enjoyment.
That's fair.
I do want to point. Oh, I keep saying I do want to point out. I point out a bunch of stuff. I'm gonna try to lose that phrase. There was one comment that made me laugh. So, in the YouTube comments of when I watched the video, there was a guy that said, "Oh, last year we released Super Mario Maker. This year we release Maker, and that's it." And I was like, "Wow, that's hilarious. I like that."
Oh, my Super Mario Maker 2 was 2 years ago?
Yeah, it was something. I
yeah,
don't think.
Funny.
I don't Maker claim that comment is 100% accurate. I just thought it was funny.
No, it is. So, speaking of Nintendo, though, according to leaked documents from Epic Games, apparently Epic reached out to Nintendo about including Samus in Fortnite. This comes after Kratos from God of War was included in Fortnite, and a few other characters as well, I believe. And it sounded kind of random at first, but with Metroid Prime 4 being rebooted, 2.5 years ago now, maybe the trilogy might be on the way. Apparently Nintendo turned it down. Again, might just not be ready. They might not like other companies really dealing with their IPs, but at the right time, you know what I mean. If they're planning on putting out the trilogy once Metroid Prime 4 gets shared a bit more, I can see that being really, really interesting, because the Metroid series hasn't really been in the spotlight for some time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Samus Returns on 3DS was good, but it came out after the Switch came out, so it didn't really get the love it deserved. Other M, we don't talk about Other M. It never happened. In which case, the last Metroid Prime game was 14 years ago.
Something like that, yeah.
So, like, there's a lot of gamers on all platforms that really don't know. Because even if someone's 18, adult, they would have been 4 years old when Metroid Prime 3 came out, and not even alive when Metroid Prime 1 came out.
Yep.
First of all, that boggles my mind. Second of all, so it's like, I can see why, especially with Nintendo's maybe younger audience, I'm surprised they didn't want to showcase the Metroid Prime, the Metroid franchise to a younger audience. Again, it might just be a timing thing, but I wouldn't be surprised if that happened.
Yeah, I mean, you are forgetting the pivotal moment of Metroid Prime, the peak of Prime, which is Federation Force, which was, like, obviously the peak of Metroid Prime. There's no better.
Honestly, I didn't even realize I skipped that game. I think my mind just, like, shut it out.
Yeah, I mean, you and
legitimately,
a lot
I wasn't
of
trying
fans.
to intentionally, as I wasn't trying to intentionally skip over it. It just happened.
Yeah.
Honestly, we've talked about this in the past, but long story short, Federation Forces would have been received better if it didn't have the Metroid Prime title on it.
Yeah, we've said it before. I agree. It seems like it's a really cool game. It just, you can't tease a Metroid Prime and then be like, oh yeah, it's actually not a Metroid Prime game, really.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, ugh. But anyway,
I will say, so when you heard about this stuff, do you know when the documents were made? Like, the leaked documents were originally pieced together? Because Fortnite had a bounty hunter like update or season or whatever it was, and I remember people saying like, oh, maybe we're gonna get like Samus in there, you know what I mean?
She's bounty hunter. Yep. I don't know when this is from, but that makes a lot of sense.
So if that was the case, I could see Nintendo not wanting to be paired up with all the other like franchises that were in the bounty hunter update, because I think like Master Chief was a part of it. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Interesting.
So it could have been like a competition of Spotlight that like was like, okay, I don't really want to do that.
They don't like that.
But yeah, I don't know. It would. I agree with you, because let's go back to what you were saying before. It's a very easy way to get the image of Metroid out there to a bunch of the younger audience that has never really seen a new age Metroid game.
Yep.
At most, they've seen it in like Smash and be like, "Oh, I really like playing this character," but they don't really know like what,
definitely,
like the origins or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great great marketing strategy, and I don't say that as someone who's never played Fortnite before in my life, but doesn't mean that I don't understand how popular it is.
Oh my gosh. It's hard to miss.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Now again, we don't know what kind of like contract they would have to sign, or like what they're really signing over to Epic when they do so. But yeah, we also know that Nintendo's very, like, they keep everything close to their body, you know?
Very protective of their first party IPs. Very, very protective. So yeah, I can see that well, I can see that being more of the issue than anything else.
Yeah, they like to keep things close. They like keep things, like, they didn't even want to put things on mobile.
For a very long time.
Yeah, crazy.
They ended up doing it, but yeah. Yeah.
Now they're thriving in mobile with like Animal Crossing stuff and the Mario Run, and I don't know if they're affiliated with Pokemon Go, because I know that it's an exclusive thing, but with Nintendo consoles or whatever. Tour? Yeah, Mario Kart Tour. I think there was like a Professor Layton-esque game in Japan.
A what? Sorry?
It's like a detective kind of game.
Oh. I've never heard of this.
Don't quote me on that. That's just going off of memory of like 5 years ago or whatever. Yeah, they've just slowly decided that, okay, maybe it's worth putting their IPs on other platforms, not necessarily like competitive platforms, but like phones and apps and everything like that, which I think was a very good marketing strategy. Again, if they should have done it probably earlier, but
well, speaking of, do you think that could be part of the problem? Is that like they just got comfortable putting their IPs on something that isn't a direct competitor? Maybe it's because Fortnite, while on Switch, is also on other consoles, which are more direct competitors. Could that also be part of the problem?
I didn't think about it that way, and that does make sense. That because you can play Fortnite on other competitive consoles, it might be an issue. Do you know there was that indie game, Crypt of the Necro Dancer? Was that it? Like where and it was like it had the Zelda.
You hop to the
beat,
thing. What
was that on other consoles?
I'm not sure. Okay, so first of all, two different games made by the same people. Crypt of the Necro Dancer was an indie game first, and then they made a Zelda one. It's a separate game.
Yes.
Basically the same gameplay loop. I forgot what the Zelda one's called. 1 second, but yes, that one was one of the first games to be entirely made by a different company, like not technically be a first party game.
Yes.
To include Nintendo owned characters.
I'm just wondering if that like extension of that game, which I know it's like a new game, but it's like it's the same game almost.
Cadence of Hyrule.
Cadence of Hyrule, yes. I'm assuming that wasn't released on anything other than a Nintendo console.
I'm looking at it now. It was not. It was only for Switch.
Makes sense.
It's a rhythm roguelike.
Yeah, so then it pushes your point again. They don't want Nintendo stuff on other consoles. That makes sense.
No.
It's sad.
Yeah.
I feel like it would be a huge thing. People would be like, "Yo, who's this orange person?" Like it's been so long, and not everyone that plays Fortnite has a Nintendo console or has Nintendo history, that you could probably even like do the whole helmet reveal thing all over again. Be like, oh, it's actually a girl. Like, there's a woman in here.
100%. That at the end of Metroid 1 for NES, when she comes out, was it like a pink bikini, something like that?
I have no idea.
Pink, something like that. It was like, whoa, what? And then at the end of Prime 1, it was like because that's the thing. The Metroid series skipped Nintendo 64. Aside from being included in Smash, that was it. So there's like Nintendo. Well, sorry, the Metroid franchise went from Super Metroid straight to Metroid Prime, which was a ginormous leap in fidelity.
Huge
first
leap,
of all,
yeah.
Which is why at the end of Metroid Prime 1, when I beat it, I was like, what? I mean, like, I knew Samus was a female at that point, but like just like seeing it in real time, it was like, whoa. So I think, yeah, like you said, you could do that whole reveal all over again to a brand new audience and get them interested in this franchise, get them interested in this a character, and again start building that hype train, and maybe release the trilogy. There's been rumored a 2D Metroid for a while. I don't really know how legitimate that one is, but again, just first the Fortnite thing, then maybe the trilogy, then you start talking about Metroid Prime 4. All of a sudden, you've got a whole new audience talking about this franchise, and you actually give 4 a chance to thrive.
Yeah, agreed. I feel like Metroid, if it hurts to say, but I feel like if Metroid Prime 4 was shadow dropped, and it wouldn't make crazy sales. It would make good sales, because I feel like the Switch, as we've said before, kind of like pushes content very well. So it will go past
definitely.
like the fan base, and people would grab it and it would be great. But yeah, it just doesn't have that same like push just in its title as it used to. Like,
yeah, yep.
It was still kind of niche when Prime was around, like Prime 1, Prime 2, Prime 3. But it still had like a push, right? It was like, oh, this is a Metroid game. This is a high tier Nintendo IP.
That's why it got 2 sequels. Metroid Prime got 2 sequels. Exactly why. Yeah, no, I agree. But again, after Prime 3, releasing Other M and Federation Forces back to back, suddenly sales were the same.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, hold on, that's not the franchise, that's not the character, that's just 2 games that just were not well received.
Yeah.
Because I think, especially now that 4, because the original iteration of 4 that they revealed was not being done by Retro Studios. Retro Studios did Metroid Prime 1, 2, and 3. Now that it is with Retro Studios again, I'm really, really hopeful, and I really, really hope Nintendo, in terms of its marketing, gives it a chance to thrive and really revive the series, even beyond what it was before.
Yeah, I agree. Do you think there is any chance we see any of it at a presentation this year, E3 or otherwise?
Ooh,
I'm talking Metroid Prime 4.
Yeah, we've talked about this briefly before. I think similar to other major games like Breath of the Wild 1 and its sequel, it's going to be a cinematic first. Shows a few things. Because again, both the cinematic trailer that was first revealed for Breath of the Wild and then years later the sequel, although it wasn't gameplay, we got to see the art style, what the graphics basically look like.
Yeah.
We get to see with the character, because like the first time the cinematic for Breath of the Wild 1 got revealed, since Link was wearing the champion's tunic and no hat, people were like, oh my gosh, is that even Link? We're like, who is this? It ended up obviously being Link. But again, we got to see what the art style looked like, what some of the enemies looked like, what basically what they were going for. So if we do get anything, it's going to be something along those lines. It's not going to be gameplay. And I think the GIF of the 4. I think we're past that now. So I think if we do get something, it would be something along those lines, where it's a cinematic, where we can still get the art style, maybe a character model, see what they're going for. Do I see that happening this year? Maybe. I wouldn't bet money on it though. Which, mind you, to that point, Breath of the Wild 2 was revealed 2 years ago. So maybe.
Yeah, and it's coming out this year.
It just depends.
I'm personally guaranteeing it.
Honestly, I'd be shocked if it didn't.
Yeah.
I'd be shocked if it didn't. It's not impossible, but I'd be shocked. So yeah, I don't think we're going to see Metroid Prime 4 anytime soon. Regularly, I think we would have, but being that they already had to apologize for a delay once, I don't think they want to go through that again. So that's the only reason I'm going to say no. I think they only reveal it once it's a done deal. Well, once it's well further into development, then they regularly unveil stuff.
Yeah.
I think they're going to wait even longer just because of what happened the first time. That's the only reason.
I mean, that makes sense. I feel like, okay, but imagine how good it would be if they just show a 4 again.
Stop.
So
No.
Okay, so like,
not the 4.
Obviously, I'm like,
Triggers.
I'm joking, but also, any press is good press, right? And if you show the 4,
sure,
it's gonna cause a huge uproar.
I think the only way they can get away with that again is by shadow dropping and or like releasing within a short period of time the trilogy. They can't just do the same thing they did 4 years ago again.
Okay. So listen.
I mean, they can't do the same thing twice.
A 4 pops up, and then it fades away, and people are like upset, and then a 3 pops up, and underneath it says trilogy, and then it just fades away.
Stop. No release date, no nothing.
No.
Oh my gosh. Oh. Oh man. I don't know, man. Honestly, well, to my previous point, it's either going to be a cinematic, like I said, or do you remember when at the Microsoft thing, was it last year, when they unveiled what Obsidian was working on called Avowed?
Yes.
Where they revealed basically just a first-person perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Again, showed off the graphics a little bit, showed off what was going on, and never showed any gameplay, but they showed just that first-person perspective for a few seconds. And again, we can glean very, very similar things as what I was talking about before. Art style, generally, what kind of feel they're going for.
Mm-hmm.
If not a cinematic, I can see them going that route as well, where it's like a 4, like you mentioned, or no, not even a 4. The 4 can come afterwards. But like, again, just something spacey, and then just you see a first-person perspective, and you don't exactly know what's going on, and then you see the power beam come up from first person, the visor HUD, and then just end it there. You don't have to show any more. Just the power beam on the lower right side, and maybe some HUD elements. Just not for gameplay, but for that first-person immersion perspective, because that's how Samus sees it. Something like that, and then fade to black in 4. Something along those lines, where it's not a cinematic, it's not gameplay, but it's that first-person thing that Avowed did. I can see them going that route.
Yeah, I mean, we had this conversation before where I laid out like a kind of trailer for Metroid Prime 4, and it like kind of followed that same-ish thing. So, okay, being more serious now. I was not serious about like the 4 and everything. I think it would be hilarious, but I don't think that is the case, that like they're gonna go that route. So before, in the early times when I was a young sprout, and you were also a young sprout.
Yes.
It wasn't uncommon that at E3 you'd see multiple big names for Nintendo, because their first party stuff is what sells the consoles.
Always has, always will. That's how they do it.
Could you see Breath of the Wild 2 at E3 and maybe we'll go more into this on an actual E3 discussion at some point. But
Can't
like
wait.
Breath of the Wild 2, an announcement with like a little cinematic kind of thing for Metroid Prime 4, and an announcement for a new 3D Mario, all in one presentation.
Oh man.
Because I think Breath of the Wild 2 is going to come out this year. That's like what I'm betting myself on, right? Metroid Prime 4, I don't think is going to come out this year. I don't think it's going to. I don't even think it's really going to come out next year. I think there's a chance, but
yeah, earliest next year.
Yeah. I would guess the year after.
2023.
Yeah. Or they say, oh, we're coming out next year, and then there's a delay, like normal, like Nintendo stuff.
God, no, they can't delay it again.
I mean, I think they're gonna wait, and they probably will, but you know.
I think they will internally. I think they're gonna wait until it's like almost done. But anyway, to your point.
And then I can see a 3D-ish Mario game coming out for next year.
If Switch doesn't get 2 3D Marios, I'm gonna be mad. And I say that because I know the Super Mario 64 only got one. A GameCube only got one. But we got 2.
Yes.
We got 2. And Switch is their fastest selling console, first of all. And second of all, Odyssey came out, 8 months after the Switch? Not even?
Yeah.
So, like, to have a 3D Mario 8 months after launch, and then nothing for the next however many years, I don't see that being realistic. Had it came out halfway through the Switch's life cycle, maybe it only gets one. But given how early Odyssey came out, I do think a second one's on the way. However, I do think Bowser's Fury was meant to tie people over. And Donkey was talking about Bowser's Fury and how, like, Odyssey kind of has more open levels than most Mario games before it, but there was still you still had to load between levels by switching between the Odyssey, by going to the Odyssey and switching levels. Bowser's Fury, all the levels are just going to be by pipes. It's once you load in once within the pipes, sure, there's loading in the background when you're in the pipes, but it's seamless.
Yeah.
And that the next Mario game could be that, but on a grander scale, where they tried to push that seamlessness and make it, because Odyssey was a bunch of relatively large jungle gyms for you to just goof around in and collect stuff in.
Mm-hmm.
Bowser's Fury seemed to take that a step further, but it was a miniaturized DLC version, whereas the next major 3D Mario might be a grander scale of that. I think that will be fantastic. I think, again, given what we saw with Bowser's Fury, they already seem to be going in that direction, and given how early Odyssey came out in the Switch's life cycle, I can see that coming out for Switch maybe in the next 24 months.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Question mark?
This E3, boom.
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild 2, next year. Mario, year after. Metroid Prime 4. Or, I mean, I guess you could switch Metroid Prime 4 and Mario. But I do feel like there's no way that Nintendo just wasn't developing a Mario game all these years. Like, they are. Whether they want to release it on the Switch or they want to, like, wait it out and release it somewhere. Like Switch Plus or whatever it is.
Pro.
Yeah, I don't know. It would be really cool if they do, because people were asking for Odyssey DLC from the very beginning.
Yep.
It would be cool if they
do this. Which is basically what Bowser's Fury is now.
Yeah, but it's not
essentially.
But like, I understand what you're coming from. It's a very different game and feel.
In lieu of Odyssey DLC.
Yes.
That it's meant to tie people over.
Because it uses separate engines for sure.
Of course.
You can see the engine being pushed in 3D from 3D World to Bowser's Fury. I haven't played Bowser's Fury. It looks awesome. is probably something I would very much enjoy. But it's very different from Odyssey. I feel like it would take a lot more effort to figure out a way to balance a full-on open world Mario than it would be to just rehash Odyssey and make like an Odyssey 2 kind of deal, where like they do Galaxy and Galaxy 2.
Maybe even Galaxy 2 was a bit grander in scale than 1, but the levels were grander in scale, no?
I mean, they were very similar. They also cut down on the home base. Like your home base was like a little tiny ship, and you moved.
Oh.
It was like a level selection system instead of like running around, and like, I mean, still a level selection system, but like more in depth, I guess.
Yeah, which is kind of what 3D World ended up going back to, in a sense.
Yeah, so I feel like,
in a sense,
I could see Odyssey 2 happening. I would be ecstatic to see some sort of open world Mario game, but as a game programmer and pseudo game developer, like that's rough.
No, I don't think full open world. I think seamless.
Yeah, I know seamless,
interconnected. Like, but yeah,
I understand what you're saying, but it's like it's hard. And like, how do you keep someone from getting like slightly bored with like such a crazy grand thing that like seamlessly intertwines with each other, right? There's gameplay that you need to add. If man, it's hard for me to really wrap my head around this.
I have a point about that, but for Metroid Prime 4. I have a point about that I want to get to.
So, okay, well, I'll finish off this thought of, like, in Bowser's Fury, there's the whole thing where, like, Bowser comes in and you have to fight him and whatever, right? There's this, like, impending sense of, like, okay, there's something you have to do.
Breath of the Wild has something very similar.
Yeah, exactly.
Very similar. Very similar.
So I'm saying that, like, having an open-ish world game, like, there has to be other aspects to it that, like, push you forward. Because I feel like platforming games, 3D platforming games as a genre there's not a lot of them anymore. And it's hard to create them,
unfortunately,
and have them very polished and be invested in what's happening. So you kind of need to toe that line when making an open world, pseudo open world 3D platformer. You can throw in Breath of the Wild is fine. Like, you throw in someone into a game where you walk around, you beat up a bunch of people, you try to survive, right? It's fine. It's not really that big of a deal. But you're not going to go around punching people in the face with Mario. I mean, you could, and maybe that is the route that they'll take, but like, that's not exactly like what I'm trying to get at here. If you keep the core 3D platformer experience, then it's you have to add things in to make it interesting for a longer period of time.
Yes. Yeah. I was to say, to that point, for Metroid Prime 4, I've heard a lot of people talking about, Metroid Prime 3 came out on Wii, Metroid Prime 1 and 2 were on GameCube, now that 4 is going to be on Switch, it's probably going to be this big, grand, like, larger scale type level design. I was like, well, hold on now. Two things. A, Metroid, even the 2D ones, have always worked best when they're in a tighter, more claustrophobic settings. And B, the whole reason for the door system was to save on resources. What's the weakest currently supported system? The Switch.
Yeah.
How do you think? Because Metroid Prime 1 and 2 run at a locked 60 frames per second on original GameCube hardware. How? Well, first of all, because Retro Studios are wizards. Second of all, because like Halo 1 was only 30 FPS on a far more powerful console. Why? Much grander in scale. It was fine. It was a great game. But Metroid Prime 1 and 2 ran at twice the frame rate on lesser hardware. Why? Intelligent level design, far more claustrophobic settings, and the door system.
Yeah.
So I think Metroid Prime 4 if assuming Retro Studios is also gunning for that 60 FPS, which they better be. The first 3 were 68. If 1, 2, and 3 were 60 on GameCube and Wii, no excuses. But second of all, back to the point, I think that closer, more claustrophobic level design and the door system will once again make Metroid Prime really shine on Switch the same way it did on GameCube and Wii. And to your point about Mario, even if they could make some sort of open concept Mario game, would it benefit from doing so?
That's exactly what I was getting at, yeah.
And not just in terms of frame rate. I mean, yes, in terms of frame rate, but again, Metroid Prime. Yeah, that's the thing. Because even if Metroid Prime could run at 60 FPS in an open world on, say, GameCube, which it couldn't, given the door system, but if it could, that game is great because it's claustrophobic, because that's the gameplay loop. Mario, sure, you could have this wide open jungle gym. How would you benefit from it? Would you even benefit from it? Even if it could run 4K 120 FPS, would the gameplay actually benefit from it? Or would it be too open-ended, and like, wouldn't the level design really benefit from it? I don't think so.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at here. Is that like Odyssey, you have your playground and it works perfectly. Every playground is interesting and new. You go, you find your moons, you move on, whatever. Whereas if you had a Breath of the Wild sized world and you threw Mario in the middle, like moving from one place to the other, like what are you putting in there?
It doesn't work.
Yeah, like it just doesn't work. That's what I'm like. I'm sure you could figure out some way to make things interesting. I'm just saying that is a process in itself.
Yeah.
Whereas you can just put out Odyssey 2 and people would be happy. You know what I mean?
I'd be happy. Actually, to that point, given because level cohesiveness will be an issue as well. Because like with Odyssey, part of what makes Odyssey great is that each area is completely different from the last. And like, and speaking of larger open concept thing, in my opinion, the best level is the densest level in New Donk City, the Metro Kingdom.
Yeah. Very cool.
It's not the largest level, but it's just jam-packed. It is so dense.
Yeah.
And again, the gameplay and platforming really benefits from that. So I think trying to go too open might not really benefit this series. Even if it could. Even if the Switch could benefit, let's say performance was not an issue at all, I don't think the gameplay would really benefit from it.
Yeah. There's so many people, like, they're on this big open world shtick now, right? Where like, oh, if it's open world, it's better. But it doesn't make sense. Like, not all gameplay really benefits from an open world theme.
No, Zelda did. Zelda going from levels to an open world, it was gorgeous. Yeah. It was great. But I don't see Metroid or Mario benefiting it the same way.
I can see with Metroid, and I wanted to bring it up while you were talking about it, is that I can see them using, because Metroid is almost like a node-based system in itself. It's like they use the doors as like, okay, this is the section of the level that we're going to load up. So that way, all of this is all good. And we're saving on technical resources because we're only loading up this section at a time. Because the system
performs so well.
Switch system is like more powerful than the GameCube, and that's not like, I'm not even doing like quotation marks or anything like that. It's just fact.
Yeah, of course.
I can see their nodes being like their rooms and stuff being slightly larger and slightly more elaborate, but not forced, you know what I mean? If a small corridor needs to be a small corridor, then it should be a small corridor.
Yep.
But because there were some more open rooms in the Prime series where...
Specifically 2 and 3.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. And you're like, oh, this is a really cool open room. But it's like, it's still relatively small. Whereas I do feel like the Switch can probably be like, okay, this is an open room, and it feels more like an open room. That doesn't mean that every single node or room needs to be super big and open, but it gives you that leeway.
Yes.
And to push that point, I feel like Retro does an incredible job, and their system with the doors is incredibly smart. They work with what they can, and I feel like Metroid Prime 4 will potentially be the best looking game on the Switch.
I agree.
Because of how well they use their resources. And I was even going to mention it while we were talking about like cinematics and stuff. It would not surprise me if whenever the game does have like a cinematic whatever thing happens, if they transition right from, like, let's say he's in miss she's flying in the spaceship, she lands down, she puts out her little blaster, the visor comes down like you're saying, and right as the visor comes down, the little message on the bottom that says this is not actually gameplay just Thanos out of there, and like and they're not going to say anything, they're just going to be like, this is it, like this is the game. Maybe they take 2 steps forward and then they cut it, and people will be talking about it forever, right?
Oh my gosh.
Because I do have a lot of confidence in Retro and how well they manage their resources. I can see it looking spectacular, almost cinematic, like in itself, with the node-based system that they use, and they can use that to their benefit.
And mind you, to that point, I mean, Metroid games before Retro got to it also used rooms, the room system. So like, if anyone's listening to this and confusing that, oh no, Super Metroid 1 had doors. The point is that Retro seemed to use it to one exceptional standard. That Metroid Prime 1 took that idea of using doors and small rooms to save on resources, and really pushing it to the next level, given the hardware that it was on. Yeah, I think it's gonna be the same thing here. The same way Metroid Prime 1 looked as good, if not better, than Halo in some instances, despite being twice the frame rate on lesser hardware. It's gonna be the same thing here, given how the level design and node-based system you were just talking about works. I agree. I think it's going to be the best looking game on Switch because of that, because it benefits from the level design it's always had.
Yeah. And, like, it fits. These doors fit. You're on a spacecraft. Like, there's going to be doors everywhere. That's just how it
literally.
works.
Like, which mind you, there's the same doors in, like, the Choza ruins and stuff like that. But again, it works with the level design. Which, mind you, to that point, they might get away with background loading and putting you through small corridors. You know what I mean? So instead of having
an actual
door, they might have a small corridor that turns. So like you don't see what's around the corner.
Yeah.
And while you walk through the corridor, it loads in the background. I can see them using that a bit more to get away with certain things.
Of course.
But ultimately, there's going to be the same door-based system, and the gameplay, graphics, and everything is just going to benefit from it.
Yeah. I mean, we don't know, obviously. Like, we're talking all this as if, like, we know exactly what's happening. They could just pop out and be like, oh, it's Metroid Prime 4, but it's, like, completely open world, and it could be spectacular, and I would not, like, bash it at all.
No, of course.
But this, just knowing the track record, knowing the Switch as, like, the Switch's technical prowess, and, like, you have to change so much about the gameplay and stuff if you make something open world.
It doesn't make sense.
Especially with, like, a first-person-esque thing, like, experience. It's yeah. I'm looking forward to it. That's all I'm going to say. I'm very much looking forward to Metroid Prime 4.
Oh man!
Even if I never play it.
A remaster of 1, 2, and 3. If they remaster 1, 2, and 3, just it doesn't even need much. Just a couple texture upgrades, or control update, and you're good to and you're grand. The game is still great. It ran at 60 FPS then. It's obviously going to now.
Mhm.
They're not going to downgrade the frame rate. So, you know, just a couple texture updates, a control improvement, and you're done. Even that could shine on Switch. But anyway, yeah. Back to the original point that open worlds don't always improve gameplay. It did for some games, like Breath of the Wild, vastly improved that gameplay. Don't know if it would work for a 3D platformer like Mario or a platformer adventure, whatever you want to call Metroid Prime, either.
Yeah, it just takes so much extra effort. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm sure you could make it work. There's studios that have geniuses on them that like they know exactly what they're doing and how to piece things together and whatever. But to transition a 3D platformer or like whatever Metroid Prime 4 you classify it as into like an open world, it takes a lot more effort than just like throwing an open world out there and dropping a character in. Like you have to keep things interesting for the player. Like if Breath of the Wild was just so in Ocarina of Time, they had like Hyrule Field and it was incredibly empty. Like there's nothing to do.
Dude, don't get me started.
At the time,
100%.
it was spectacular because it's new. You're like, oh my god, I have all this freedom. I can like ride on my horse in this field. Like I've never had this experience before. It's amazing. It's empty though. There's like, it's just grass. If all of Breath of the Wild was just a big flat grass plain, it doesn't matter that it's a Zelda game.
I was gonna get to that.
It's not fun. So
yeah, I was gonna get to that, and that's the thing. Breath of the Wild, although there is a lot of empty space, it's jam packed with stuff. Because like again, Donkey was talking about it. He was like, well, instead of making you go to one area of the map, it was like Assassin's Creed, for example. And again, I believe Donkey was talking about this. It was like, yeah, you've got this big open space, but to progress the story, you've got to go to that spot in the map. Same thing in Grand Theft Auto. Grand Theft Auto, big open space, but if you want to progress the story, you've got to go here. Breath of the Wild said, okay, end game's over there. If you want to prepare yourself for the end game, the stuff that you need to do to upgrade your character and get through the story, it's everywhere.
Yeah,
it's just scattered across the entire map, and so now every direction is the right direction. I think that's what kind of really opened up that gameplay. Because if it's a big open area, but you have to go here, then it doesn't benefit from being a big open area.
Exactly.
Breath of the Wild, it uses its big open area to its advantage by putting everything everywhere, essentially.
There's everything. There's always something. Well, that's the thing. Like, there's always something to do regardless of what direction you go. Whether it's is beneficial to you in the end game or it's just like something that's there. There's always something. There's shrines that pop up. There's towers that you can go and get. Even like just enemies. Like just there's always an impending sense of like survival as well. And there's no like starvation system or whatever, but you have a heart system. You might come across an enemy that you don't know you can beat. It's always new. I mean, I can't say it's always new. The enemy variation in Breath of the Wild isn't the best, but it's enough. Yeah.
What's the thing with that? Like some of my favorite moments were like in like the snowy area. I'm walking in a direction. I don't know what's in this direction. It seems like it's been nothing for so long, and then all of a sudden, your sensor starts going off. Beep beep, beep beep. Oh, a shrine's around here, really? And then you see a giant rock at the top, doors at the bottom. Oh, okay, I'm gonna push the rock down, and you do. Bashes open the door. Bam, shrine. So like right when you think you're heading in the wrong direction, you're still not heading in the wrong direction.
Because there is no
you know
wrong
what I mean?
direction.
It's a genuine sense of discovery. You mean the game didn't tell me to go there. I was just exploring.
The world is a puzzle in itself, and
Yes.
it's always like keeping your mind busy with something, even if it's like super bare bones busyness. Like, oh, I don't want to die here because it's really cold. I should put on like a nice warm sweater or something.
Yeah.
It keeps you busy, and that's where, again, I keep going back to like the point of I was trying to make with a open world Mario game. Like, you need something to keep you busy in the in between points of an open world.
Yes, exactly.
And
exactly.
Mario as a baseline does not have that. You can have coins scattered everywhere, I guess, or like a bunch of Goombas, but like it doesn't have that same depth.
Well, that's the thing, because like a shrine, you get something out of it. There's an incentive.
Mm-hmm.
Killing a Goomba, what do I get?
A coin, maybe.
You know what I mean? So it's like, if there's an incentive to go everywhere like there is in Zelda, awesome. If not, then why am I going here?
Yeah.
And I don't think, and that's why Mario thrives in those level-based and or with Odyssey, those smaller jungle gyms where it's not a giant open world. You know what I mean? It's a smaller jungle gym so that it doesn't get lost in the sauce. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but if we're talking about E3, obviously Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be there. I think it's going to be either Mario sequel or something about Metroid. I don't see all three franchises being there.
The big three, dude. It's been so long.
But speaking of, it is Zelda's 35th. It's also Metroid's 35th, and no one's talking about it, which is why we need the trilogy coming out this year. The trilogy for the 35th anniversary, because we know 4 isn't going to be ready this year.
Yeah.
So might as well have something like the trilogy, right?
We figured we've talked about this before. We even had the notion of starting a podcast, and it's that the trilogy has probably been complete for quite some time. They've had it ready for whatever Metroid Prime 4 was supposed to be before, and they want to release it in close succession, because, as we were saying before earlier in this podcast, you need to kind of build up hype for Metroid Prime 4. It's not it is like a hype-inducing title, but it's not as big as some other hype-inducing titles.
It's been a while.
So you kind of need a build-up, and a trilogy coming in close succession between 4 and the trilogy is a good way to do it. So
like Let's Go Eevee, Let's Go Pikachu came out about a year before Sword and Shield. Mind you, it came out a few months before they actually unveiled the name for Sword and Shield. So to that point, it's like, okay, Let's Go series. Then a few months later, as people are still playing Let's Go, unveil a Sword and Shield a bit more and start that hype train, and it's it gets people going.
Yeah,
it gets people going.
You keep it in people's minds, and it's always a good thing. Yeah, it's just an easy way of marketing, right? If there's always constantly something happening with the title in mind, then when something drops, there's more eyes on it, because you always have it in the back of your mind.
So I'm trying to think of different examples of that, but which is why I brought up a Pokemon. But there's been a few different examples of that, I think.
Yeah. I also don't agree with you that, or not like completely. I don't know if you were saying that the trilogy is going to come out this year. I just don't think it's going to come out this year.
No, I'm saying that's either going either for the 35th anniversary, but for E3 for E3 I was saying it's gonna be Breath of the Wild 2 and either a Mario sequel or the trilogy. I don't see it being all three major franchises all at once.
Yeah, but it would be so
just because it would be. It would be. But like having a direct in 2020 would have been nice too. We didn't even get that much, so it's like
Yeah, but 2020, like,
I don't know.
kind of an outlier year, you know?
No question, not denying that. But yeah, what I think there's a chance there could be all three again. Short cinematic for 4, trilogy announcement / maybe not shadow drop, but like coming out next month, and maybe Odyssey 2. But I don't know. I do think it's going to be Breath of the Wild 2 this year for holiday, Mario sequel next year for holiday, Metroid Prime 4. I don't know if it's a holiday game because they've had some big franchises release outside of holiday, like last year, Animal Crossing. It came out in March. It's already been the second highest selling game. So like, the Switch does not need a game to release the holiday to sell well.
No, it doesn't.
So I think Metroid could be one of those March games. It could be a March game, easy.
I can see it being a March game. I don't know.
Astral Chain was August.
Yeah. It depends on like what their lineup for the year is as well. But
Of course.
I don't see them forcing it to be a holiday game. I don't think Metroid Prime 4 is a holiday title. It works very well. Holiday titles are really good when they're catered to a wider array of audiences, and I don't think they're pulling in the casual gamer or the or the younger side of gaming with a Metroid Prime 4.
Yeah. So again, would it benefit from being a holiday game? Maybe marginally, but again, as we saw with even Animal Crossing, as I mentioned, if a giant seller like that doesn't have to be a holiday game, a Metroid Prime game certainly doesn't need to be a holiday game. Well, a holiday game either. Mm-hmm. And so I can see it being, honestly, maybe March to August of 2023.
Yeah, maybe a Pokemon game that year.
Ballpark. What?
Maybe a Pokemon game that year for a holiday title.
Because Arceus is coming out early next year.
Yeah.
Interesting. Arceus. Yeah, maybe.
Can't compete with the Pokemon franchise, man. It's like almost impossible. It's the perfect holiday title.
After Sword and Shield, it should be possible. After Sword and Shield,
but it doesn't matter. It's a perfect holiday title. You get all the hired fans. You get all the kids in there. The parents don't even need to know what the kids like. Oh, Pokemon. All right, let me grab it.
Everyone likes Pokemon.
It's perfect.
Yeah. So that's what I think they're going to go for. Breath of the Wild 2 holiday this year, Mario sequel holiday next year, Metroid Prime 4 mid 2023 with Pokemon and or something else being the 2023 anchor.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was saying before as well.
Yeah. We've been talking about that for quite some time.
Yes.
Well, I mean, E3 is coming up. E3 is coming up.
We will have a
Nintendo announced
E3
that they're going to be there.
For sure.
Oh my god.
It will not be a podcast. It'll just be us talking about E3 stuff. And maybe we won't even have a time limit to it. We'll just talk until we cannot talk about it.
3 hours of just Mario is good.
24 hours. Non-stop E3 discussion.
I can't believe it's a month away. I also can't believe Nintendo actually announced they're going to be there after not doing much last year and after the only direct this year being 50 minutes of JRPGs.
Was it 50 minutes of JRPGs? Jesus. It was a lot.
It was 50 minutes.
Yeah.
It was 50 minutes, and there was a lot of JRPGs. I'm not that far off.
Oh, man. Yeah. It was a little bit surprising. I thought when they backed out of E3, it was going to be like a continuous thing. And I don't think they really need E3 at this point. If they release Nintendo Direct like around the same time as E3 and it's just like its own big thing, I don't think anyone would really care.
I was going to say, I thought they were going to do a Sony thing where PlayStation just stopped showing up before the pandemic.
Yeah.
They're like, like we've got State of Play now. We don't really care.
Yeah. I don't know. I am slightly biased. I grew up with E3, so like I like
Of course.
the concept of E3. It's a cool thing. I feel like it's gotten more and more commercialized. It's a little bit
too much.
A little bit poop in that sense. But
Nice.
otherwise I still enjoy E3 as a whole. So seeing Nintendo like come back in and have a presentation, it'll be cool. I wouldn't blame them if they leave. I wouldn't blame every single major like console and company for leaving E3. But
yeah, I see some people being like opposed to that, but it's like, hold on, these companies are still going to have holiday games. They still need to make money. They still need to push their consoles and software. So whether or not they announce it at one unified convention doesn't change. I mean, games are still going to come out.
yeah,
So people are like, oh, why did PlayStation pull out? Or PlayStation is still coming out with amazing games. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Did you see the gameplay
I haven't watched the gameplay
recently?
yet, no.
It looks so good.
Awesome.
So it's like, so that's why I don't get when people are like super attached to E3, especially nowadays, because it's like we're still gonna get stuff.
Yeah.
People still need to make money. Companies still need to make money.
I get it.
We're still getting stuff.
E3 was like Christmas for gamers, right? It was like, this is where you get all the info of everything that's going to come up. It was like, you get this influx of all this information into all this hype, like all at once. And you always knew, okay, like, I just need to wait for E3, and then I'll know, like, what to be excited about for the year, like, in reference to gaming. Whereas if every company is, like, splitting off, then, yeah, of course they're going to keep making games. Games are going to be coming out. They're going to be spectacular either way. But
of course,
you don't have that knowledge. You don't have that set day. Nintendo can release a little trailer at random whenever. Sony can release a little trailer at random. Microsoft trailer at random. You never really know what to be excited about.
They already do, though.
Sorry?
They already do, though.
Yeah, I know. But
that's my thing.
I'm just saying, like, it's different, right? It's different from getting all the info in one space, and you know it's going to be there, and you know you're going to be hyped, and you do your thing.
True.
Then, like, oh, I wonder what Nintendo's doing this year. There was a whole, like, we went a crazy long time without getting an actual direct from Nintendo, right?
September 2019 to February 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got Indie World, we got individual game announcements like Age of Calamity and a couple of things last year. Paper Mario got talked about. Something. It's like we got announcements, but yeah, like if we're talking major general directs, not Indie Worlds, not one game specific general directs. September 2019 to February 2021, a year and a half.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to get at, right? Is that you can have these little announcements and it's fine, but you can't plan your year around a random announcement.
That's fair.
You can plan your year around, even if Nintendo Direct comes and you're like, okay, it comes out roughly in March, and I know that Nintendo's going to release like a bunch of info for the year in this Nintendo Direct. That's fine. Like, it plays the same-ish purpose as an E3.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. You might want to go out and buy, I'm going to go buy Breath of the Wild 2. And then the next day, Sony's like, oh, we're releasing Last of Us 3 in, like, a few months or whatever. And you're like, oh, damn it. I just bought this game. Like, I need time.
So, yeah, you're saying it's not about E3 specifically. It's about predictability and being able to plan around certain things.
Yeah,
that's fair.
And E3,
that's fair.
Like it does that purpose. Like the purpose of E3 for a consumer is that, right?
Yes.
So that's why I can see why people are like, oh, well, don't leave E3, blah 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 blah. But I can see as as a company, it makes a lot more sense to just do your own thing.
Yeah. It depends on whose perspective we're coming at, I guess. So, I don't watch as many speedruns as you do. Do you have any recommendations?
Every week, my dude. Always.
I've always got music recommendations.
Nice. I also have a music recommendation, which usually, as the past few weeks, have tied to my speedrun recommendations, and the trend will continue. So
I thought every week was Beach Buds.
I mean, every week is Beach Buds, but like,
yeah, low key.
Like, softly recommend other music.
Yeah.
The speedrun I want to recommend is an Ibn Ob speedrun. It's
nice.
An indie game. It has to be played cooperatively. It's really cool how like the glitches and stuff work out. I'm just gonna quickly shout out the people in first place for the all glitches any percent speedrun for Ibn Ob. It's Walikter and Mary Majesty, both German people. It's a fun speedrun to watch. If you want to watch people speaking in English, the second place people are English. It's a fun speedrun. It's very cool. And you might want to pick up the game. Very good game.
Nice. I do not have a speedrun this week. Aside from the goofy stuff Team Darkside does in
yes
post in Monster Hunter Rise, but I think I mentioned that last week. So I'm going to hop right back into music recommendations before moving on to what's free in the Epic Game Store.
Yes.
And I think I've mentioned Andrew Hulshult before for Dusk.
For sure.
I'm going to mention Andrew Hulshult again for A Medieval. Medieval is another game published by New Blood Interactive. This song, I don't know how to say it, but I know it's the song in episode 6, level 1. I can spell it for you. Aetheres. Atheres?
Sure.
I don't know how to say it. But yeah, so again, if you're interested in looking it up, A Medieval, episode 6, level 1. It's spelled Aetheres. I know there's a way to say it. I just don't know how to say it myself. But it's this piano track. It's really, really cool. Episode 6, I forget how many levels are in it, but it's one of my favorite episodes in Medieval. Every level in that episode is great. Episode 6 and 7, the last two episodes of Medieval, are fantastic. Everything about them is just, I don't know, it's great level design. It's eye candy. The soundtrack fits everything accordingly. It's great stuff. Highly recommend it.
Nice. I'll definitely give it a listen. I haven't actually listened to the last song you recommended last week. I'm usually pretty good about that. I can't remember. I think it was was
it Mick Gordon for Doom Eternal?
I think so, or something like that. I will go back and listen to it. I'm fairly good about that, but this week has been busy.
Fair.
The track that I'm recommending is from Ibn Ob.
Of course.
And it's by Kettle, spelled Kettel. The track is Fin City. All one word. And it's like a kind of a electronic lo-fi, like very relaxing vibe to it. It's very happy. There's other tracks on the Ibn Ob soundtrack where they're a lot less upbeat and happy. But yeah, this one, it's a good vibe. I like it. Go listen to it.
Nice.
Very nice.
Yeah. Cool. And before finishing up, we're going to quickly go over the games that are and will be free on the Epic Game Store. As we mentioned last week, this week's game is Pine, which is an indie game. I really want to check this out. I believe it's on Switch. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to double check. I think I mentioned it last week, how it launched in a bit of a rough state on Switch specifically, but to my knowledge, has gotten patched and is much better now. I would look up recent gameplay first, as a lot of reviews early on were about the performance.
Yeah.
So if you're interested about getting this game, either A, check it out for free on Epic Games on PC, or if you're a Switch user and are interested in this game as well, it is on Switch. Look up recent reviews, not original reviews, because of that discrepancy in the performance. But again, if you're a PC user, just grab it for free on Epic Games. And next week's game is going to be The Lion's Song. I've never heard of this game. Have you?
I have not.
Looks like both of us have something to play next week then. Because, I mean, right off the bat, the banner, the art style, I don't know, something about it. It's grabbing me. It's interesting. Lots of browns and lots of... Oh, it's more of a pixelated thing going on here. But, yeah, it's almost like a sepia tone, a pixel art style, which is very interesting. And I want to know more about it. It's a narrative adventure game.
Cool. I mean, I'll give it a look at some point. I'm gonna download it regardless. So,
of course.
I recommend that
it's
most
free.
people that have an Epic account do.
Agree. Or just a gaming PC. I highly recommend getting an Epic account and getting free stuff. Because why not?
It's free.
Why not? Exactly. I mean, they're probably stealing your information and soul, but it's fine.
Yeah, but like free games though.
Exactly. My soul is 1,000% worth
My
free
soul is
games.
worth like very
Without
little.
question.
So all these games combined, I'm like,
it's fair trade to me.
More than a fair trade.
I think we're winning this trade. But that just about does it for today's episode, unless you have anything to add.
Listen to Beach Buds. That's pretty much it.
Listen to Beach Buds. Always listen to Beach Buds. I've always listened to Andrew Holschult. Again, he's done soundtracks for Dusk, A Medieval, Quake Champions, the Doom Eternal DLC specifically, the DLC, not the original game. But yeah, he's done a bunch of stuff. I'm a huge fan of his, in case you haven't noticed. Also Proteus. Proteus is another game he does the soundtrack on. Another indie shooter. Yeah. Andrew Holschult, and his stuff is everywhere as well, so definitely check his stuff out. But without further ado, this episode has gone on for quite some time, because we were talking about Nintendo for quite some time. If you enjoyed this podcast, give it a like, subscribe for more content, ring that notification bell, smash that like button.
Smash it, please.
And we'll see you again next week.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.